Um, so my name is Margarida. I work for the European Environmental Bureau. Yeah, thank you for the invitation and for organizing this event. And thank you to all the speakers who presented before. I will try to be succinct and add environmental NGO perspective to the very rich academic presentations given so far. Most specifically, I will try to convey our main priorities and points in replying to the fitness check that was open until this August. The EEB has also engaged already last year in the consultation to the Environmental Liability Directive, the directive that implements the polluter-pays principle. And we've been engaging with this for a while. We gathered some numbers and some evidence and some priorities from our different teams and also from our members across different EU member states. So I will try to give that, to convey that to you. But you can find our whole reply both in the European Commission Have Your Say website and also on our website. So we believe that the polluter-pays principle in its implementation should ensure the full implementation of negative environmental and social externalities. And contrary to what some special interests would like to reduce it to, this principle is not merely about making the polluter pay off a right to pollute per se, as that would create a perverse incentive. And it's as it's been said before by Mr. White from DG Environment, and according to the OECD, it's explicitly about getting the polluter to monitor, reduce, remediate, and prevent pollution, and to provide legal recourse for justice, enforcement, and compensation for environmental and health damages caused by pollution. We believe that the polluter-pays principle and the precautionary principle are two sides of the same coin. However, at present, and as been discussed so far, the implementation of the polluter-pays principle is restricted to kind of rather limited taxation and failing market-based internalization instruments, which almost exclusively target the energy and transport sectors, while overlooking other sectors and other sources of pollution and resource use that can be extremely harmful. It does not currently provide any recourse for monitoring, enforcement, or compensation for environmental health and climate damage, and is not fit for purpose in most environmental and climate policies. At present, the most harmful industries have been able to turn the polluter-pays principle into a sort of pay-to-pollute scheme, rather than bringing themselves into into alignment with the EU policies and reducing their emissions, and a mere cost of doing business. And therefore, we believe that, and there is broad agreement here and in general, that this principle is not currently fit for purpose and needs to change. So about this fitness check, we were a bit surprised and confused when it came out, again, because of the format being a little bit unconventional as to the usual commission consultations, call for evidences, etc. But however, we're very happy that a critical look at the polluter-pays principle is being taken. But we really, really hope that it can be more than a mere academic exercise, or, as we fear, a political necessity arising out of the, well, rather harsh results of the Court of Auditors report. The result of the fitness check will be a recommendation, and as I have expressed before, and my colleague from Client Earth as well, we do not think that's enough. We need clear legislative action to have a proper implementation of the polluter-pays principle in the EU and national policies, and that this is crucial to support the full achievement of the European Green Deal and the EU's climate targets and many associated union policies. So to give a little scope of the problem in more practical terms, for instance, when it comes to air pollution, the estimated cost of air pollution annually in the EU is around 277 billion euros. Between that and 433 billion euros, so there's a a range here, but it's quite high nevertheless. But taxes for air pollution cover far less than that amount, as is to be expected. In GDP, to put it in terms of GDP, the air pollution tax in the EU is about 2.2% of GDP, and the cost of air pollution and greenhouse gases alone are 5% of EU GDP. So, it's not covered. When it comes to water as well, there's a EU Commission study called Green Taxation and Other Economic Instruments that shows that the cost for water pollution just from specific kinds of fertilizers is estimated at 22 billion euros annually. And if we factor in other pharmaceuticals, microplastics, PFAS, those forever chemicals, and mercury, the amount becomes close to incalculable. And this is a consideration that we bring in our reply and in our actions in general. However, the revenue derived from water quality failures is only about 900 million euros annually. And there's also the issue of pollution in the broad scene. So, for instance, when the impact that an operator has on geographical, hydro, morphological damage, for example, reversing a river flow from water pumping and so on, and from pumping back polluted water from the coal industry, for instance, into the water systems, how can this be taken into account? When it comes to chemicals as well, there's the REACH, the Chemicals Directive. It technically includes the polluter-pays principle, but the implementation is weak, as is for many policies that implement the polluter-pays principle. The Stockholm Resilience Center recently went as far as to say that chemical pollution has now crossed the planetary boundary, putting our planet permanently out of balance. How to grapple with this? And also, this is a bit of an example of what's happening across different sectors. Now to highlight some structural issues with the polluter-pays principle as we see it. Before pollution, we think it's very important to define clear pollution limits, targets, and standards. So hard measures versus soft measures. To have disincentives, so more taxes, charges, and fees. Currently, less than 6% of all taxes collected yearly by member states come from environmental taxes. It's about, and 3/4 of that are from the energy sector. So this is not being used in practice, and Mr. Wright kind of explained that maybe the reason why the emissions trading scheme and a market-based approach was adopted, because politically and procedurally it was more feasible, but that does not mean that it's enough or the most effective or correct instrument. The Court of Auditors reports has some points on the ETS. I won't repeat them. And again, when compared to the total environmental taxes collected across the EU 27 countries that have the share of the ETS revenue is around 5% of the share of pollution taxes, and this one is even it's lesser than that at 3%. So we must question how fit this tool is for this purpose. Also, we would like to see more end-of-life tools. For example, waste prevention. We'd like to see more extended producer responsibility. That's currently limited mostly to waste management, so recycling. We'd like it to be used in prevention, so waste prevention, reusability, circular economy principles could be applied here, durability, repairability. So we need to focus on the end of product life cycle as well. And also charges and fees. For example, water used in the coal sector, and we know that many EU member states still have a thriving coal sector for some reasons. And the EEB has a report, the Mind the Gap report, that shows the operators pay nothing or next to nothing for the water that they use. And the mining sector, the coal sector, use a really, really large amount of water. And then this water gets back into the water cycle, polluted, or either pollutes or decreases the quality and quantity of the groundwater body, which can have terrible health and environmental effects. And then we also think that the deterrent aspect is a very important one. We would like to see the polluter-pays principle tie in with other EU policies, such as the Environmental Crime Directive. So we would like to see not only civil liability and civil sanctions, but also criminal ones, as foreseen in that draft directive. We believe this could be a deterrent effect, or we hope that it would. We think policy making needs to be science-based, but this is something we advocate for always and constantly. And also very important, access to information for victims, which seems to often be overlooked. And it's essential to, for example, for them to claim their compensation rights and to enable litigation. So another very important thing that Mr. Wright also touched on is the state aid. There's an example in Germany with the lignite coal mines. More than half of the 1.75 billion euros meant for the coal mines in Germany are accounted for minor remediation, and we fear that similar authorizations for every country which still have not phased out coal could happen, and this is not all right. We don't think any taxpayer money should be used to pay for the pollution caused by operators. Yes, and we are also quite concerned with the Environmental Liability Directive. We do understand, but at the same time, don't think that can be done so much, that the fitness check and the environmental liability sort of assessment are being done at the same time, but separately. We don't think they can be separated. And there's some things in the ELD that we find quite concerning, such as they stand now, such as the burden of proof. For example, in REACH, so in chemicals, the polluting chemicals are so frequent in our environment that proving that one company or one operator caused a certain chemical to show up in a test is near impossible. And it's difficult to hold companies accountable for their duties of care and extended producer liability. There need to be better and more information requirement obligations for operators so that a causal link can be established and they can be held accountable. So we have some, I believe I'm extending myself too much, so I'll jump ahead to our core demands around this principle, what we hope to see, and what we replied in our fitness check paper is that we need a broader political paradigm shift around the polluter-pays principle. We believe that the terms such as zero pollution need to mean that pollution is not harmful for the environment or human health, and that's what we need to strive for. Or we need green conditionalities for EU funds, so stop and redirect harmful subsidies, assess beforehand, before spending public money, assess liability possibilities of a certain operator, and then decide based on that. That should be a core criteria. Also an environmental tax, as I said, we're not really using it, and we should be. And we need directly applicable polluter-pays principle provisions, so stricter and more concrete permitting conditions, clearly defined limits and not vague targets, and clear due diligence obligations for EU operators or EU-based operators or operators operating in the EU and polluting in the EU. We need to reduce also the amount of permitted pollution. For example, derogations, exemptions, free allowances. We don't think they can continue. Liability conditions need to be made more clear and easy. For example, we need to delete the permit defense in the Environmental Liability Directive. Just to give you a sense of why this is so problematic, most air pollution occurs under a permit. However, this is not, we think, an excuse to the polluter-pays principle. And also we need a reversal of the burden of proof to give, victims and NGOs and the civil society a fighting chance in holding operators accountable for the pollution they have to pay for. And yes, that's it from my side. I hope everyone could understand. And feel free to reach out to myself or any other colleague at the EB.
Thank you very much.